Hi everyone, it's James here. Welcome to another video. So I didn't reveal in my previous video, which was the contest entry I did for Richard McCook, that I've actually moved house now. So this is the second video that I'm making in the new place. So not quite fully settled in yet. In fact, we haven't really moved officially, but I've started bringing some stuff over. You can see in the background the books and the records have started making their way. So this is going to be the new place for me to make videos for the next X number of years, we'll have to see. So yeah, hope you enjoy the new setting. So I'm going to do a vinyl finds video because it's been about a month since the last one, and I'm going to show you some records from a record shop that was new to me. It's a shop in Bolton called X Records. Now I think this shop is known to a few people on the VC. I know I've had a couple of commenters saying that they know this shop. Rob Walker I think goes there quite regularly. So I picked up a stack from there over 2 consecutive visits on 2 consecutive days. Picked up 5 records, 2 on the first day, 3 on the second. And so I'll just quickly tell you what happened. I was in Bolton, which is a town not too far away from me. I've got family there. I was there on a kind of mixture of family and business type events. I won't bore you with the details, but there were 2 consecutive days when I had to go into Bolton, and on both days I was in the town centre. I had to wait in the town centre for a couple of hours. So when I got into town, it hadn't even occurred to me to think about records, but I checked my phone and realised that this place, X Records, was just round the corner from where I'd left the car. So I toddled off and found the place, and yeah, X Records. So this shop was a bit of a mixed bag. I will explain as I go. So on the first day, I picked up 2 things. I'll show you one, and then I'll talk a little bit about the shop again. So the first record I picked up was this one. This is Robert Palmer, Some People Can Do What They Like. And I've decided to try and track down Robert's earlier records. I know John Downing, 6-inch pianist, did a video last year, I think it was, about Robert Palmer and these early records, which you know, they contain members of Little Feat and various other illustrious people. This record has got all sorts of people on it. Bill Payne from Little Feat, we've got Chuck Rainey, we've got Jeff Porcaro's on here, Richie Hayward from Little Feat. So they've got that great kind of swampy, just great, it's almost like listening to a late night radio station playing obscure, forgotten, white soul, you know, blue-eyed soul music from the 1970s. This was his 3rd record actually, and it was the first one to chart. The first 2 didn't chart at all. The previous one I got was the second one. I'm still looking for his debut. This one, it came out in 1976, and I think it reached the top 50, I think. So it was the start of him making some inroads into some commercial territory. Just made some notes here that the lady on the front is Denise Michelle, who was a Playboy model at the time. So this has got some great tracks on it. I think the single was Man Smart, Woman Smarter. But there's a great track called Spanish Moon as well. Like I said, if you know the music of Little Feat, you'll know what this sounds like. Robert Palmer doesn't have the greatest voice in the world, but his voice is full of character. He does a pretty good job of that blue-eyed soul thing. It's got an appealing huskiness to it, a bit of gruffness to it, and the arrangements are really good, really swampy, soulful, a little bit bluesy. So I was really pleased to find that. So that's just on Island, of course. He was signed to Island Records. He was a bit of a mainstay at the Bahamas studio where Island Records was situated, and he was kind of known for being, well, a bit of a ladies' man, shall we say, and a bit of a party animal. So people used to gravitate towards his apartment when they used to go and record there. Anyway, so back to X Records. So this place it reminded me a little bit of, there's a shop in Morecambe near where I live called Vintage Vinyl, which apparently has changed its name now. It's now called Eden Records. And Vintage Vinyl is one of those places where the stock is, you know, basically not in very good condition and overpriced. Now that's not to say there's nothing good about that shop or nothing good about X Records, but it's just one of those rather frustrating record shops. X Records, you walk in through the door, the upstairs bit is all CDs and DVDs, whatever, memorabilia, and then there's a staircase going down. You go down, and it's like a kind of mixture of emotions as you sort of look upon the cellar, because it's just packed with records, floor to ceiling, not just in racks, but piled high. So your first thought is fantastic, got a lot of stuff to look through, but also a bit of trepidation really when you start to see that quite a lot of the stock is unmarked, unpriced. There's boxes and boxes of stuff that haven't been sorted yet, and then you start to look through the stock and you realise that a lot of these records are in pretty ropey condition. Scratches, scuffs, and a frustrating shop in the sense that you'll find something that's quite cheap, and then you'll pull the record out of the sleeve and you realise why it's cheap. It's because it's absolutely shot to hell, So a record that you wouldn't even take into your collection if somebody gave it to you for free, completely scuffed to hell, would be about £3, £4, and then a record, moderately scuffed and scratched, you're probably, looking at whatever, £7, £8, and then it keeps going up, and then you'll find something like really, really desirable, something in really good condition, a record you've been looking for years, and hey presto, it's £45, and there was stuff there priced up at £30, £40, stuff that I see at my local market traders here in Lancaster, Heightside Records. I see those records going for whatever, £10, £12, second-hand Stranglers albums for £35, and I'm not quite sure what these guys, what planet they're living on really. But yeah, so the first day I think I spent about 2 hours in there poking around, finding things, putting things back, finding things, putting things back, getting frustrated. But in the end I did come away with that record, which was in really nice condition. And then this one, which I was really pleased to pick up because I decided that I was looking for a copy of it. This is the album Life in a Day by Simple Minds, which is their second record. Their first album, sorry. I've left the stickers on here so you can see the prices. So this one was £7.99, and I think they had 3 copies of this. Quite a few records were like this. You'd find a record and there'd be maybe 3 or 4 copies of it, all priced differently. So there'd be a cheap one, a medium one, an expensive one, and you'd go through, you'd try and work out which is the best one to get. Really frustrating because you get one where the record was in really good condition and the sleeve was shot to hell, and then you get a thing where it was the other way around, and you were trying to thinking, kind of surreptitiously Frankenstein these records. I was literally, looking around to see if there was a security camera, because I really wanted the record from one album and the sleeve from another, but I didn't do that in the end. But this was kind of the best one I could find really, but it was fairly random. There was one that was cheaper than this, which was in better condition, either the sleeve or the record. It was crazy, but anyway, I found that. I was pleased to find that. I don't really know the music of Simple Minds. They're not a band that I was ever into back in my youth, but I'd started streaming their records, and I think I got about 4 or 5 albums in to the discography before they started to get that kind of boomy stadium sound, which I always associate with Simple Minds. One of the reasons I never got into them, I think, is because I'd only really heard that later stuff. But the first couple of records, the first 2 or 3 records, I thought sounded quite interesting. They have a kind of post-punk vibe to them. When this record first came out, it was slammed a little bit by the critics, and the band themselves were not happy with it. I think it was seen by critics and by the band as being a little bit maybe too reliant on the past, a little bit too derivative of other stuff. There's a definite Roxy Music, Brian Ferry sound to the vocals. Also sounds a little bit like other post-punk stuff that was around at the time, How DeVito magazine, that kind of thing. I think from the second album onwards they started to maybe get their own sound a little bit more together, but it's still a good album. It's an enjoyable listen, and like I said, I was pleased to get it. So that was £7.99. I could have found that for a £5 at Heightside Records, but I thought I would pay that for it. So I came away from that shop feeling a little bit cross, really, because I really felt like they were kind of taking the piss a little bit. In fact, I wrote them quite a nasty review on Google, and it was so funny because the next day I had to go into Bolton again, and I told myself the previous day that I wasn't going to go back to that shop. And I got into town, realised I had some time, and thought, oh sod it, I'm going to go back there. So I got my phone out and I deleted my review. So I thought, oh my god, if they've seen the review and then I walk in there again. So I deleted the review, went back to the shop, And I thought to myself, well, you know, I spent a couple of hours in there yesterday, so I'll just have a quick look around, make sure there was nothing I missed. And I think I spent 3 hours in there on the second day. And it was just that thing of just getting more and more determined, because I knew I'd found something on the first day, really determined, you know, really wanting to hunt around and search. I put loads of things back, you know, there were jazz records there that I picked up, looked at, put back, reggae records, picked them up, put them back, either because they were shot to hell when you got the record out of the sleeve, or because they were just ridiculously priced. But again, after 3 hours of digging, I came away with 3 records, all of which were in really good condition actually, and were reasonably priced. So thank God it wasn't a waste of time. So this is one that had been on my wants list, not a difficult record to find. In fact, a couple of days later I went down to Heightside Records, my local market stand, and they had one there cheaper and in better condition as well. This one's got a seam split, you know, but I got it anyway. This was $6.99, which, you know, I think is too expensive for this record, but I got it anyway because it was on my wants list. This is Blancmange and Happy Families. This is a record that I'd heard quite a lot about. I've got a couple of friends who are really into electronic music, and they'd said that that is an important record to get. So Blancmange, if you think of kind of early Depeche Mode and Soft Cell, in fact they did start their career. They were on, I think it was either an EP or a compilation LP of kind of early British electronic music, and their big hit, of course, was Living on the Ceiling, which was the 3rd single from this record. There'd been 2 previous singles, I think Feel Me and maybe I Can't Explain, but they'd not really done very much. And then Living on the Ceiling was a big hit. I think it got to number 7 in the charts, something like that. So the band are, because I think they're still going, Neil Arthur on voice and guitars and electronics, Stephen Luxcombe on synthesizers and keyboards. So yeah, think early Depeche Mode, early Soft Cell, quite a hard sound actually. It's quite ironic, even though they're, you know, the name of the band, Blancmange, you think of something very soft-centered and a bit kind of, I don't know, woozy kind of thing. But the sound is quite tough. It's quite electronic and hard sounding.
The thin line between what's right and what's wrong, I can't explain.
And there's shades of the coming through in the guy's voice. He's got quite a dramatic voice. I don't think they've quite got the songwriting chops of the. Don't think that the lyrical angle is quite you know, sharp enough. But it's a fun album. I enjoyed it, and like I said, it was on the list, so I thought I would grab it. And then this next one, there are a few records in the racks by this artist. This was the only one really that was decently priced and in good condition, and I've peeled the price off this, so I can't tell you how much it was. It was probably about £6 again, but I thought I would grab it because it is in really good condition. This is Telecon by Gary Newman, and this is his 2nd solo album. There were two records he did as Tubeway Army, and then he went solo, and this is the 2nd album he did solo. It was a big album. Got to number 1. Came out in 1980. It's on Beggars Banquet, which is quite nice to see. The classic indie label Beggars Banquet. So I can get it out for you. There you go. And when this record first came out, it had a free single. I think it was a live single, but of course my copy does not have it. But here we go. Anyway, Gary Newman. This is a really good record. I mean, I've always liked Gary Newman, but I think there's maybe more to him than people think. This record, he called it the last of the. I think he called it the Machine trilogy. The previous 2 records, that kind of very hard Germanic electronic kind of sound, you know, really influenced by Kraftwerk. But on this record, on this album, there's a kind of softness to it as well. There's this lovely piano that weaves in and out of the tracks. It's really beguiling.
The telephone line's blind.
you know, Gary showing his sensitive side, I think. Almost a kind of elegiac kind of quality, very emotional. Not very emotional, this kind of hinting at emotions with all this kind of cold stuff going on. It's a really, really intriguing kind of sound, and the songs on the record I just think are really good. I mean, the song titles are very J.G. Ballard. They're very sort of, you know, dystopian. You've got the Air Crash Bureau, Telecon, Remind Me to Smile, Sleep by Windows, Remember I Was Vapor, and the Joy Circuit. It's all very Gary Newman, but yeah, I think that is a really, really great album, and I'm going to carry on picking up Gary's records as and when I can. And so finally, this was the find really of the 2 days, because this record, it looks pretty much, it's not unplayed, but it's in really good condition. It was also a very good price for what it was, £9.99. And this is an artist I showed recently, a different record by her. This is Suzanne Vega and Days of Open Hand, which was her third solo album. Well, I say solo album, she was always a solo artist, but this was her third album. And it came out in 1990. So her first album was 85. I think the second one was 87. That's the one where she had a couple of big hit singles. It was Luca and Tom's Diner. I think both those records were quite successful. This one was not so successful. It didn't really enjoy much chart action. She brought in a songwriting collaborator, Anton Sanko. I don't know much about him, but he co-wrote maybe 6 or 7 tracks on this record, and she wrote the rest. But Solitude Standing, that was the second album from 87. But this is a beautiful record. I knew the album already. I've got one of those 5 CD box sets, and this was in that box set. There's a couple of really strong tracks at the start. Tired of Sleeping, Men in a War, both great songs. And then on side 2, again, a really strong run of songs, quite electronic, more electronic than her previous 2 records, but also some ethnic sounds coming through as well. So I was delighted to get this for a tenner. And you know what I mean, there were other records in the shop less desirable than this, priced at crazy prices. You know, a kind of bog standard Stranglers LP that you'd pick up for a £5 was there for £35. And this record, which I would expect to pay more for really, given that it came out in 1990 when, you know, vinyl was not too common, this was £10. So it just goes to show, I mean, you know, that shop had some good points. There were some good records in there, but you did have to search and hunt around for them. And I didn't really get the impression that they were kind of serious, dedicated record dealers. I mean, there were records there unpriced, like I said. There were also records with no inner sleeves, which I just think is unforgivable. You know, if you're a record shop and you're selling second-hand records, you know, don't put records out with inner sleeves. You know, I expect to see that in a kind of Bernardo's style charity shop. In fact, even in Bernardo's, they'll go to the trouble. You know, the little old lady behind the counter will spend half an hour sticking the records in scratchy paper sleeves. And you know, for a shop which is flogging records for £35, £40 second-hand, and then you find that they're beaten to hell and there's no inner sleeves in them, I think, you know, it's a rant, isn't it? It's a rant video. I didn't intend that, but anyway, the shop had some good points. I thought the guys in there were quite friendly. They seemed okay, and you know, I would have liked to have given them a more, well, less coruscating review. But I mean, that was my experience. I'm still reasonably pleased. I found 5 records there, and I left a few things behind that I wish I'd picked up now, but they were overpriced, so I'm not going to lose too much sleep over that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. I rambled on a little bit more than I was intending to, but that's the way it's gone today. So anyway, yeah, hope you enjoyed that, and thanks to all subscribers, old and new, and do leave a comment. Always great to hear from everybody. Hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you all soon.